Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Inside of today's video, we're going to be doing a full rank guide for the upcoming rank season. There's two new modifiers. I'm not too sure what the third one is just yet, as I'm pre-recording this one, but there's a bunch of meta shifts, there's a bunch of changes with the map pool and everything else. So this is the best way to learn and push towards masters as quickly as possible with these cheat sheets. Guys, we're going to be starting off with a bounty. Here are your best picks on the screen right here. So shooting star is just pretty much the same. I'd say the main meta shifts, in my opinion, have been the likes of Mandy reappearing in the bounty meta in competitive. She's so good on bounty right now, so make use of it as well. There's like strategies going down a lot of times on shooting star where you pick an 8-bit, you try and get an early lead. I don't know, try and get like a thrower or just something that's aggressive to pick up the mid star, and then you can just sit back with the 8-bit boosted booster star power, and it's pretty much impossible for opponents to push into you because of the damage is just crazy strong. In terms of other picks as well, Lily has gone to the shooting star meta. It's a little bit harder to actually use her, but I would say she's absolutely insane. Of course, Angela and Piper are still really good. Byron, Bell, there's a lot of good options. I think the brawler that's kind of phased out a little bit is Meg because of the limited range. But, for example, if people go like kit compositions or Melody or something like that, then you can easily go Meg because she deals a lot of damage. So, it's just the same old shooting star. This map is Canal Grande. Here, your best picks on the screen right here. So, Canal Grande, I think is going to be very toxic, especially since the introduction of like Frank in the meta, of Berry, for example, who you think of the choke points. Berry is just going to be so toxic because it lasts for 6 seconds. It's going to be very strong, so make sure to abuse Berry as much as possible. And throws are really good on Canal Grande, but Canal Grande is always this mix up between like a thrower, a tank, and then just kind of some in between brawler. And of course, the best brawlers is always going to be the likes of Angelo and Eve, because Canal Grande is a very spawn trap heavy map. So of course, brawlers that can go across the water, they're just immune to the spawn trap. So that's why you always want to lock those in. In terms of other good options as well, late on, again, tanks are just really good, like the Buster. Jackie can be a really big problem. Draco as well with the gadget. In terms of snipers, I wouldn't really go snipers on Canal Grande because they get pushed back so easily if brawlers get control of the mid grass, so be careful of that one. But there's a lot of late pick cheese on this map. And lastly, for bounty, we have hideouts here. Your best picks on the screen right here. So in terms of the hideout meta, it's a lot of Mandy, it's a lot of Jean, it's a lot of 8-bit strategy as well, trying to camp out the back of spawn once you get the mid star. It's a lot of Larry and Laurie, who are just good against everything. Again, the kit cheese is just astronomical. Lily as well, so I won't mention it too much throughout the video, but if you don't know already, the best 3 brawlers are just Lily, Meg, and Frank. I would honestly just ban those brawlers no matter what. At the same time, you can counter Frank and you can counter Meg. It just makes the draft a lot more cheesy, so at least ban Lily. I think that's one brawler who I just auto ban every single time. In terms of good options that are really underrated, Pearl is so underrated on this map because the choke points are just really easy for her. She can easily build up the heat, and she's a good counter to a lot of the aggression, good counter to Max, etc. I'm seeing a lot more just diverse gameplay in Hideout. Again, it's not just your typical sharpshooter meta. It probably will be for the majority of players, but you can go super aggressive with the likes of Max, with the likes of Cordelius, Buster, all of these aggressive ideas. Byron synergizing with Draco, for example. There's a lot you can go on Hideout. So now we're going to be moving on to Heist, starting off with Kaboom Canyon. Here, your best picks on the screen right here. So of course, always with Heist, the meta hasn't shifted too much. In terms of the best options, it'll always be Melody, Chuck, and then the likes of like Angelo can be pretty strong, etc. In terms of options, I would be banning pretty much all the time. Again, Lily's just so broken with the gadget and can just get so much pressure onto the high safe. She deals a lot of damage if left alone on the high safe. In terms of things to still be careful about, Frank can actually deal a lot of damage in Heist. So again, as a brawler that you need to be thinking about countering within the draft. That's how messy draft can be at the moment. There's like 3 broken brawlers, and then you've got to take into consideration the broken brawlers already in Heist, which there's a lot with the hypercharges. But with Kaboom Canyon, it's always the same type of brawlers. I like certain brawlers as well that like to get into the mid easier. You know, for example, Gale, especially with a hypercharge, you can use the jump pad and just jump into the mid and get automatic pressure. Can be pretty good. Griff is a good tank counter, good at opening up the map as well. Brock can just be good at opening up the mid so you can get into it and counter all of these other options. And of course, it's just the same old Heist as always. So next up, we have Hot Potato. Here, your best compositions on your screen right here. So the same with Heist, the likes of Chuck and Melody, always going to be your best options. other really good options that have started to be really strong. I always laugh, but Frank actually is one of the best Heist brawlers right now. He deals insane damage onto the Heist safe. Colette as well will always be good, a direct counter to, of course, Frank. In terms of good options here that aren't really good on the longer range ones, you know, like Nita's very strong. You've got the likes of Dynamite, who can be a good late pick. You've got the likes of Barley, who can be a good in-between pick. Willow as well. Crow is just good into everything because you're eventually going to get super right. Typically, you get a lot of aggro brawlers like Buzz, for example, and just other options. So Crow can just feed a lot of supers and then get the hypercharge and pretty much win the game every single time. Rico with the hypercharge is just absolutely insane here. BB, there's a lot of different scenarios you can go, just making sure that you're not getting completely screwed over if the opponent has a last pick, because both tanks and throwers are really good as late picks. And finally, moving into safe zone. So it's just pretty much the same as you've been playing last season, because I think safe zone stayed the same, but here are your best picks on the screen right here. So again, the same old Chuck, Melody are going to be your best options, followed by a Lily as well, because you can just gadget and just cause so much pressure and just delete every single person in 1v1. Of course, Meg is absolutely insane as well, if I've not spoken enough. And then the likes of Angelo, still really good on safe zone. You got a hypercharge buff, and he's just really good as a defender, even aggressive. You can jump onto the safe with a super. Byron's got some good cheese synergy with just pretty much everything, any type of aggression. Crow, again, just absolutely insane in the safe zone meta right now. The likes of Mandy, I've seen some improvements. I might start to use Mandy a lot more in Heist because you can cycle through supers so quickly. Also, Piper received the hypercharge, starting to come back to the meta. And of course, you got Colette, but then the other brawlers are just pretty much the same. Berry, I feel like, can be really good as well. The main problem with Berry is that aggression can counter him, but if you can get into like the right top corner, you should be pretty good to go. So now we're going to be moving on to Hot Zone, starting off with Dueling Beetles. Here are your best picks on the screen right here. So the Dueling Beetles meta is just crazy, especially if you don't get the right bans, because Meg is so strong in Hot Zone right now. The same with Frank, the same with Lily, and there's just so much tank counters, tanks just flying around everywhere. You know, Lou is starting to see a lot more improvement in pick rates. Barley might not be a tank counter, but with the hypercharge, he's just already really good in Dueling Beetles because his super can be really good at flushing out the opponents. Gale was already good on Dueling Beetles, but with the recent hypercharge and the super buff, he's absolutely insane. Colette as well, just shutting down everything. Kit is really good on Dueling Beetles because typically you're going to have some sort of aggression on this map. RT can be pretty good, but pretty hard to pull off. Berry as well. I've not seen it in competitive yet, but of course it is Hot Zone, Berry's best game mode. But I am a little bit skeptic on whether Berry can get countered by all of the aggression going on, so be careful of that. But it's just going to be pure chaos in Hot Zone. The next map is Open Business. Here are your best picks on the screen right here. So with Open Business, again, there's this cheese that's always on this map in terms of really good late picks with throwers. You know, I really like to go Barley and Dynamite as a late pick. Same with maybe Edgar, or just some late pick cheese. In terms of options, I really love in this meta is the likes of Chester, because Chester's just really good in Hot Zone. He's got a lot of HP, so he can get onto the zone, and then his supers can cause chaos. And then, for example, if you do face off against a thrower, at least you got the chance to break open one of the key walls, which will be really good at countering it. Again, the likes of Griff are really good at just breaking open the map, so then you can allow your longer range brawlers to excel. I'd say tanks can be good, but there are just a lot of tank counters in the meta right now, like Colette, like Gale, that are just way too good, so I wouldn't really advise just beating it down all of the time. And the same with Berry. Berry can be really good. I'm just scared of so much aggression going on in the meta, but I think Hot Zone definitely is going to be his better mode. And finally, moving on to Parallel Plays. Here are your best picks on the screen right here. So Parallel Plays is a pain to play with randoms, but hopefully this will help you pick the best brawlers. So of course, the best brawlers are always going to be Melody, Frank, and Lily when it comes down to this map. Meg is very good as just a mid controller and just destroying everything. In terms of your defensive lane brawlers, you want something that's just really good against tanks and good at pinching. So the likes of RT is pretty much indestructible, especially with his new gadget. He's so broken on the left side to defend. And then you got the likes of Gale that can be pretty good on defense, Meg, Charlie, etc. that can be really strong. In terms of your aggressive brawlers, you've got a lot of options like Chuck, for example. Chuck is so good with his posts. He can just easily get onto the zone. The likes of Kit can be really strong. The likes of Jackie. There's a few other aggressive ideas as well, which you can always do pretty good on. And then of course you want a brawler that's just typically good at floating around the map and pinching. So that's why I like the likes of Byron. Stu can be pretty good for that reason. Charlie as well. There's a lot of options you can go. So now we're going to move it on to Brawl, starting off with center stage. Here, your best picks on your screen right here. So center stage is the tankiest it's ever been. There's just just so much going on in this map with Frank, with Meg, with Buster, Jackie, all of this beatdown, Draco, Byron, Poco synergies. There's a lot going on, so making sure you're well equipped, and there's a lot of tank counters out there. So the likes of course Colette going to be your best option. You know, Chester's a very good tank counter right now. Gale is insane on center stage and always has been. Hypercharge has just made him even better. Even the likes of Crow can be pretty decent if paired well with another damage dealer. The likes of Rico is just insane against randoms, especially since the hypercharge. Put the vision gear on him and he just absolutely wrecks everything. Sandy's still pretty good with the hypercharge as well, but like I said, you've got to be so prepared for tanks, so making sure you've got one of them equipped in this draft. So next up with Brawl, we have Pinball Dreams. Here are your best picks on the screen right here. So with Pinball Dreams, as I always say, the late pick cheese is definitely there. So what I tend to do is just focus on the throwers because there's just so much cheese there. They just counter so many different brawlers. So the likes of Barley, Dynamite, Larry, Willow, those are your like 4 options that are just great at countering everything. You've got the likes of Buzz, who's a good late pick as well. But the way that I like to draft on Pinball Dreams and just Brawl at the moment is just pure tank counters again. So that's why you're just seeing so much Gale, so much Colette, so much Griff. Griff is actually a fantastic option in this meta to break open the map, because it's actually one of the only ways that you can counter brawlers like Frank and Meg is by breaking open a map and purely outranging them and pinching them as quickly as possible, or else if they get within striking distance, you're dead. So that's just why you see such a tank heavy meta. Meg is just insane in the middle in terms of other good options. You know, still got the likes of Max. You know, Barry can be really good as well just overall. I've seen Kit used a lot in Brawl. There's just so many shenanigans going on. You've got to be careful. Then finally for Brawl, we have penalty kick. So this one's going to be a little bit harder to draft for because it's a new map. Well, it's not a new map, but it's a map returning that hasn't been in the meta for a while, and there's only been like a few drafts I can take a look at. But the way penalty kick always goes, it's either you just run it down with tanks, but at the same time, throwers are absolutely broken on this map. The same with Rico as well. So either you've got to open up the map to counter the throwers, or you've just got to go throw. So I really love Barley early on in the draft. You know, Barry can be very strong. Dynamite can even be really good early on in the draft. Or I like to go the likes of Rico, again, Griff. Stu can be good at breaking open maps. Shelly can be pretty good. Of course, Frank's going to be broken as well. But in the draft, I wouldn't even be afraid to go like double thrower, for example, because it's just so good. You can just lock down a lane so easily with a thrower. It's just crazy. But as I said, just be prepared for anything on penalty kick because throwers just dominate. So now we're going to be moving on to gem grab, starting off with Hard Rock Mine. Here are best picks on the screen right here. So of course, the best 3 brawlers are always Meg, Frank, and Lily in terms of really good options as well. Rico is very good with the hypercharge recently. He's been just even better in the meta right now in terms of cheesy compositions in the middle. You know, I've been seeing a lot of RT in the mid because he's just a great counter to the likes of Kit and just all of these aggressive ideas. You know, 8-bit is returning to the meta to just really take down those tanks. You know, Angelo's still pretty good, especially since the hypercharge buff. Piper can be pretty good because you've got the knockbacks. And then in terms of lanes, it's again just your typical Hard Rock Mine brawlers. So I see a lot of like Nita, I see a lot of Amber, and I see a lot of like Buster, Buzz later on in the draft. I see a lot of like Gale now in this meta. Cordelius can be pretty good to shut down ideas. Again, it's just the same old. Jumping into the next map, we have Double Swoosh. So with Double Swoosh, it's always about having good brawlers that are well equipped with the vision gear because it's just absolutely essential for lane control. So in terms of the mid brawlers that you can go, it's just the same Double Swoosh brawlers. So I like the likes of Jesse, for example, because you're not immune to any sort of aggression. Jean's really good with the vision gear. You got brawlers like Max as well in the mid. Just make sure your mid brawler is not vulnerable to aggression because all it takes is for one brawler to appear out of a bush and you're screwed. For example, if you're going like Byron, who's just very suspect to any aggro picks. In terms of lane picks, I really like quite a few in Double Swoosh. For example, Amber with a vision gear is insane. The likes of Pam can be pretty underrated down the lane as well. I know a lot of people don't have Pam maxed out. In terms of other good lane controls, you know, Gale is insane with the vision gear down the lane. The same goes with Chester as well. Tara can be an underrated picker as well. Later on in the draft, you've got the likes of Rosa that will just dominate, Jackie, BB. So again, you've got to be well equipped. And then lastly for gem grab, we have undermine. So this is a map returning to the ranked rotation. I don't even know if it's been in it, but it's been in the game for a while. But undermine, from what I remember, is actually very spawn trap heavy. So if you can get a brawler that's good and dominant in bushes and can just keep shooting into the mid where the opponent's going to be respawning, it's near enough impossible to push into. So in terms of the best brawlers, it's going to be the same meta options. I would say that you won't really have to be as careful against tanks, because eventually you'll get your super, you'll be able to break open a wall, etc. to counter them. But maybe one tank would be pretty good. In terms of like lane shutdowns, you know, Spike isn't the best in most maps, but I actually like a Spike on this map with the vision gear. You can shut down lanes easier. Then once you get control with Spike, it's really easy to keep it. In terms of other good options as well, Amber is going to be insane here. Sandy's really good with the speed gear, but likes of Draco can be really insane in a 1v1 because of that cheesy gadget. And again, just making sure you're well equipped with at least one brawler that's got a vision gear or something that can help pinch with your mid and at least win lane, and then you win a game on undermine. Finally, moving on to knockout, starting off with Bell's Rock. So Bell's Rock's been in a rotation before, but here are your best picks. The meta shifted a little bit in terms of knockout. I'm seeing a lot of like Barley in the knockout meta because people tend to wait on to the late game, and then you've got the Barley gadgets that can be really cheesy. Throws are always good on Bell's Rock, especially just because it counters so much. But again, you've got to make sure that you've then got some type of tank counter in there. So the likes of Pearl, I really like in knockout right now because it counters the kit compositions. And then if there's a thrower, you can open it up with the super, for example. But again, making sure you're not leaving open just dumb brawlers like Kit, Frank. You know, you don't want to face that, because then you might have to bring out like a Colette or something in knockout to try and counteract it. But again, I love the likes of Byron. You know, Rico can be a dangerous pick. Any thrower is dangerous. The likes of RT can be good to counter over the cheese. Piper. There's a lot going on in Bell's Rock. So moving on to the next map in knockout, we have Out in the Open. So here are your best picks on the screen. So Out in the Open has always been one of my favorite maps for snipers, because you can just sit in the bush and just chip and do a lot of damage. So in terms of my favorite picks, always the top 3 brawlers in the game. But then people always forget the likes of Gene. I've always said it on Out in the Open because your main attack can just easily scout the bushes with one shot with the vision gear. So this allows you to keep control, know where the opponents are, and then Magic Puffs is so good on Out in the Open. So as I always say with this map, it's all about pressure. If you can push your opponents back into spawn, then they only have a couple of ways to fight out spawn, and you pretty much can just wait for the gas to close in and you can win. So use that to your advantage. It's probably the best tip I could give. The draft, I would say, again, the only things you got to worry about, well, there's a lot to worry about, but again, like Frank compositions can be cheesy. Byron, Kit, to be honest, I would just ban Kit because you can always work around the draft in terms of countering Frank and everything else. But Kit pretty much is uncounterable, especially once you get to the later rounds, just one super and you just can't do anything. And finally, moving into the last knockout map, we have the return of Flair and Phoenix. And this one is one of the most hated for pros, because the way that it plays out in the late game is that you've got just brawlers just sitting behind the unbreakable wall and just waiting for the gas to close in, and then all the fighting happens at the end. It might not be the same with you guys in ranked, but that's just how it plays out. So for Flair and Phoenix, I definitely say to be passive. Don't go on the aggressive, especially if you know you've got a better composition for late game. You know, for example, again, Barley is absolutely insane at knockout with the healing gadget, the healing star power, pretty much unkillable. But if you have a lot of HP towards the end, you know, Meg, Frank, Pearl, all of these big beefy brawlers in knockout, you're going to be winning the late interactions. Gene again is going to be absolutely insane. I always recommend a thrower on this map as well, because when it gets to the later stages, throwers are just so good at control. So Larry and Laurie, Tick, Barley, there's a lot of good options that you can go. But again, I don't think aggression is actually that good on this map, because you can just hide behind the unbreakable walls and just cheese with throwers. That's going to be it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. Of course, I feel like I'm not as accurate as before because I'm doing this preemptively instead. Normally I play like a full day of ranked and then I do this type of guide for you guys. But I feel like I've got a good understanding of the meta, and I just feel like this is the most chaotic draft spin in a while, because there's so many broken brawlers that you have to ban. So like I always say, just be prepared, making sure that your draft isn't just suspect to aggro in particular, or else you just get walked all over. So that's gonna be it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.